Hello again and welcome to Money Tips. This is Charles Kelly bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, accumulate and enjoy more money and maybe help you get out of debt as well. January is traditionally the month where people start getting all these bills from the Christmas spending and the December spending and that sort of thing. And of course, a lot of people are going on holidays as well over December. So it can be a tough month. Monday was officially January Blues Day. I think the middle of the month was the time when people are getting the credit card bills, and of course you've got a long gap between December payday and the end of January before you get paid again. So a lot of people are in trouble. In fact, the government's helpline, the Money and Pensions Service, said it receives a call about debt in January every 4 minutes. So a lot of people are in trouble. A lot of people are getting payment demands before they've even had their January pay check, if you like. So it can be a tough month for people, and it just highlights the problem that people are in with just spending now and paying later and buying everything on the never. Of course, last year we saw former model and reality TV star Katie Price go bankrupt, and she was once worth 40 million. It's incredible. And I wrote about this in my book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness, the stars that lost it all, including people like Nicolas Cage, the actor, many actors in fact. Mike Tyson, who's earned 300 million in his lifetime, is now doing sort of game shows and that sort of thing in America to earn a living. I don't know how you get through that sort of money. Michael Jackson was another one. He didn't go bankrupt, but I think he would have done eventually had he not died, because he just went through his money like crazy. Katie Price, as we've mentioned. Famous singer Isaac Hayes, he wrote the music to the theme from Shaft and many great tunes. He went bankrupt because of taxes, and they took all his royalties. Then he became a DJ on American radio. The Move, Jeff Lynne of Electric Light Orchestra and Roy Wood, they were part of a group called The Move in the 60s, going back here a bit, but they had many hits, and they were made bankrupt for some reason, and the judge took all of their royalties, so they didn't get a penny, and that's why they went off and formed these new groups. So it's not unusual for even people who've earned a lot of money to go bankrupt. And as a financial advisor, I met people that a few years earlier I'd seen on Top of the Pops singing, and next thing you know, they're struggling. They've either been bankrupt or they're in debt, or they've got county court judgments. They can't get a mortgage. It's unbelievable. In fact, there's more people highlighted more recently who've gone bankrupt. The group Blue, many might know this group. All of them have gone bankrupt. People like 50 Cent, for instance. I remember reading his book, actually. I'm sure he wrote a book on making money. He went bankrupt. Some of the people who are on Dragon's Den have been in trouble. Kerry Katona, singer. So a lot of celebrities go bankrupt, maybe because they just go on a spending spree, maybe they neglect their taxes. A lot of them blame bad management, like Blondie, for instance, had bad management. They were really struggling until they sort of made that comeback, and they've made a fortune. So many of the stars have had, just bad people looking after their money, or they've taken their eye off the ball, and their money has been whittled away by managers and hangers-on and all these sorts of things. So, just be careful. But for most people, going bankrupt is just because they've been in debt and, they just can't afford to pay anymore. And they're not necessarily celebrities. They're just people that have taken out too many credit cards and this sort of thing, just got into trouble. So the way it works, if you're if you're declared bankrupt, basically most of what you own can be taken away. Now, this would not include tools of your trade, but a lot of people would lose their house. There are some exempt goods. Your computer, if you need it, might be exempt from that. But a lot of things would be taken away. Now, many people, when they're made bankrupt, may not have that much, but it can be a big wrench to lose things and lose assets that would otherwise have been yours. And creditors, the creditors are organisations or people that you owe money to, can also ask you to be made bankrupt. They can make you bankrupt. So you can declare yourself bankrupt, but you can be made bankrupt by your creditors if you owe more than £5,000. It used to be less. I remember a guy being made, he said, well, make me bankrupt then. And they made him bankrupt for £2,000, which is a bit silly, really. He could have just paid that off over time. A lot of people get into bankruptcy through owing money to the tax tax office will go after you, and they'll go all the way to make you bankrupt, perhaps because they don't want you to be back again owing taxes again. But it's like when you're bankrupt, you're kind of wiping the slate clean. So there are there are some advantages to it, because you do wipe the slate clean, and people that are chasing you for money, like ringing you up, writing you letters, you get a letter, one letter and another letter, it gets more and more dramatic from the debt collectors, and then the final letter's read all over it, you will be taken to court. Sorry. All that will stop, because you just say, well, I'm bankrupt now, and that's it, and all the debts will be written off. And sometimes that can be a big relief for people, because they might owe half a dozen credit cards. They may owe £50,000 in different credit cards, and they just cannot cope with the interest anymore. They may have lost their job. Now, it actually costs money to become bankrupt. So some people haven't got the money to do it. It costs £680 to go and fill in a form and make yourself bankrupt. But that is about it. Now, if you're earning money, any excess money over your living expenses could be deemed as spare money, and anything over £20 could be then used to clear off your debts. But if you're not ready to go for the whole bankruptcy procedure, you may want to go for a debt relief order. It's like an arrangement with your creditors. And this is not quite the same as bankruptcy, but it means you're paying off a percentage of your debts over a period of time. And so that might be a relief, because when you go bankrupt, the big disadvantage is that it does blight your credit history, your credit record. It stays on your credit history for 6 years. But even beyond that, many forms ask you, have you ever been declared bankrupt? Not have you had a county court judgment in the last few years, or do you have a county court judgment? It's have you ever been bankrupt? It's on a lot of insurance forms. It's on mortgage forms. And sometimes mortgage companies will go back over your whole history to see if you've been made bankrupt. So I know many people personally that have been made bankrupt or declared themselves bankrupt, and some of them said, yeah, it was great, I just wiped everything off. One guy I know had I think over £1 million of debts. He just wiped it clear. Clearly that was a perhaps the right move for someone like that, because they'd be paying that back for the rest of their life if they just paid back that £1 million of debt that he owed personally. But for others, sometimes it's crazy to go bankrupt for, say, a few £1,000s when you could work that off and pay it off and keep your record clean. So it's horses for courses. Some people get made bankrupt through business debts that they've signed a personal guarantee for. So if you have a business loan from the bank, but you sign a personal guarantee, even though the business owes that money officially, you could be called in if the business fails to pay that off under your personal guarantee. Banks love personal guarantees. They love to have the business owing the money, the property, and the final arm in the vice, that you will sign that personal guarantee. And I've written about this before. Try to avoid signing personal guarantees. Sometimes you can say, the bank say, we want you to sign a personal guarantee. So, no, I don't want to sign a personal guarantee. And sometimes they'll say, oh, all right then, okay. And that's it. Because they've got the business, they've got a debenture over the business assets, they've sometimes got other security. Why do they need a personal guarantee? So just be careful of signing personal guarantees. So with bankruptcy, normally you can be discharged from bankruptcy after a year. It could take longer. Some people, it used to be 5 years, but you could be out of it by a year. Apparently student debts are not exempt, so you may still have to pay back your student loan. So what I'm trying to say here is, bankruptcy is a last resort. So don't get into this position because someone down the pub told you, go and spend and have fun and do what you like and get loads of credit cards. You can always declare yourself bankrupt. Yeah, that's easy. Well, no, it's not that easy. It's still a bit of a stigma. You're an ex-bankrupt and that sort of thing, and also it could affect your career. If you're in anything to do with legal, financial services, accountancy, if you're bankrupt, that you could lose your job, and yet they may not want to register you as a lawyer if you've been made bankrupt. So it can blight your career, and I'm sure there's many other jobs where you could be affected because you've been made bankrupt, because you've been seen as a person who's perhaps been reckless with money, you can't pay it back, or you refuse to pay it back. It's just not a nice thing to have. And the other thing to watch with debts is just try and make sure you keep your payments up to date, because once you start missing payments, that goes on your credit file. And if you get a copy of your credit file, which I recommend you do, just Google "get a copy of my credit file" and look at your credit file, because there's a lot of detail in there that people don't realise. People think it's all about a county court judgment for a debt. No, it's not. It can cover things like missed payments. Have you missed payments? Are you late with? They call it a missed payment is being late with a payment. So if you go into your bank to pay your credit card over the counter on the last day it's due, you've missed that payment because the money won't get to them for another 4 or 5 days. Well, it should. It's in the bank. They've got the money, but they won't credit it to the credit card for another few days. So you're late with the payment. If you miss, even energy bills and that's if you're late, you bounce direct debits. It's all going to go on your credit file, and that will make it very difficult for you to get finance and mortgages later on. And ironically, the worse your credit file is, the more you're going to pay for credit. The more you're going to. It's like one broker I know told me, he said, someone said to him, "Why do I have to pay a higher interest rate? I need this money more than others, and I'm being charged now a higher interest rate for a mortgage because I can't get a normal mortgage." And he just said, "You've taken the piss out of the system, and now the system is going to take the piss out of you." And I love that line, because it's a bit like that. The worse you are with money, the less money you've got, you seems like you pay more for everything. You pay more for your electricity through one of these key meters. You pay more because you can't pay things in advance. You pay more because lenders will charge you more for credit. They won't give you cheap rates. Yeah, and you pay more on a mortgage because you can't get a normal mortgage. There's so many different things. You even pay more for goods if you have to go and buy them locally. You can't go to big warehouses and big shops. You pay more for things that you have to. A lot of poor people are renting consumer goods. They're paying through the nose for consumer goods like fridges and TVs and games consoles through these rental companies that really rip them off with high interest rates. You just pay more for everything, for things that you buy through catalogues and that sort of thing. You're down there, and someone's going to put their foot on your head and push you down further into the mud. And part of this is bankruptcy and debt. So try and keep your credit file clean and your credit history clean, and consider bankruptcy when you've taken advice, and do it as a last resort. You can get advice in the UK from several charities, Step Change, Citizens Advice, used to be called the Citizens Advice Bureau. There's the Money and Advice Service, and again, but pick independent advice. Don't go for these companies that say we'll wipe off your debts by making an arrangement with your creditors. They're not really independent. They're just trying to get you into an arrangement so that they can earn fees. So that's it really. Just be careful. Don't be one of these people who just said, "Oh, it's easy to go into bankruptcy because you'll be out of it in a year or two." It's not like that. It can stay with you for a long time, and perhaps throughout your life. It can blight your career and blight your life. So just think about it carefully. And if you want to know how to manage your money better, have a look at my book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness, on Amazon. Thanks for listening, and have a great day. Bye for now.